Yeah, in the confidential item. Yeah, that's okay. Good afternoon, councillors, members of the public and officers. Welcome along to this meeting, which I declare open. I acknowledge this is Wadani Noongar Budja, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So under announcements, just want to make sure that all the elected members are well. Are you all well? Very good. It has been a very trying and challenging period for the past week, especially with the changing scenario on a daily basis, announcements from the federal government, state governments, and the appalling news coming from around the world. I just want to make a statement that goes into the minutes, and that is the City of Bunbury staff have done an unbelievable job. The call to arms, the considerations, the support, the emotional support, the physical support, everything that you could ask for has been done to the best of their ability, and they're being challenged every day. It'll continue. And tonight, under 14.1, we're considering a matter which I hope is supported, but we'll get to that. And I know the CEO is ready to roll out what he can and the rest of the exec can do to give further support to our community. It is unbelievable times that we're dealing with, very stressful, and I applaud the CEO, the exec and everybody involved with the City of Bunbury for doing such a sterling job. Councillors, we also are very concerned about your wellbeing and mine, so we're going to be trialling by the end of this week some technical assistance to provide for remote attendance at these meetings, and that'll be in place by end of this week, Mr. Chandler. So please don't hesitate to make use of that. We just need to know in advance whether you're going to be physically here or attending remotely. So let's move on. Councillor Brown is unwell tonight, so he is a late apology. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest tonight?
Yes.
Councillor Plum.
Yeah, I have a declaration of interest. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yes, impartiality on 10.4.2, as I have a friend that lives on Nenki Way.
Okay. Further declarations? Councillor McGuell is present, and I don't think you'll be here for the duration. I think we can amend the agendas into the future. Going back one. Okay, let's move on. Can I have someone confirm the minutes of the last council meeting, please? Councillor McGuell. Who was seconded? Councillor Kozisek. All in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Do we have any petitions, councillors? Thank you. We have a request from Mr. Stuver to speak to item 10.4.3. Those who agree, please indicate. That's approved. When I get to that item, I'll invite you up to the microphone. Thank you. Dealing with tonight's agenda, councillors, coming out at the moment is 10.3.3, which requires an absolute majority. I'll just do one more, Councillor Smith. 10.4.3 obviously is coming out, and we'll deal with 14.1 and 15.1 later in the meeting. So 10.3.2, Councillor Smith.
Correct, sir.
Any further items, councillors? Can someone move we adopt the balance, please? Councillor McCleary, second to Councillor Hayward. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move to 10.3.2. Can I have someone move the executive recommendation? Councillor McGuell, seconder. Councillor Hayward. Councillor Smith, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just curious about, on page 19, replace corporate vehicles for $548,000. I just want to know how many of them. They don't include trucks or working vehicles, I take it, so how many of them and what are they? Thank you.
Mr. CEO, would you have that information on hand, or Mr. Harris?
I don't believe we've got it on hand, but I know that only today we have discussed deferring the purchase of a number of vehicles for the balance of this financial year, and also reassessing vehicle purchases in the 2020-2021 budget as well. So perhaps Councillor Smith, if it's okay through you, Mr Mayor, we can provide that information separately.
All right, thank you. And just one other little thing, please, Mr Mayor. Current expenditure in IT, I take it we're going to be spending money remotely and all the rest of it. So is there going to be any difference from the current budget on IT?
CEO?
Mr Chandler, are you able to just address that one, please?
Thank you, Mr Chandler.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, there will be some slight increases in expenditure predominantly around connectivity of the city to enable remote working capacity, and there is some additional devices for mobile workforce. However, we believe it will be absorbed in the current materials and contracts for that area, so it shouldn't make a material impact on the budget surplus position.
Okay, Councillor.
Sorry, sir, can I ask a follow-up question from Councillor Smith? I just wanted to know, out of the budgeted item for replacement vehicles, and given the fact the CEO has said that they were looking today at excluding some replacement vehicles, does the council know exactly the amount of money that we will not be funding for replacement of vehicles?
CEO?
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. So this particular item we're looking at is the financial statement for the end of February. We will bring further information back to Council on future budget changes, and I think we will also have a budget review tonight, which again is done to the end of February. As I said last week, we will be looking at another budget review in this financial year, possibly in April or May, late April, early May, before we get to the end of the financial year. So offline, I'm happy to give you the advice from the Director as to which vehicles and how much in dollars we are at this stage anticipating not spending in this financial year.
Councillor McGrell, do you wish to speak to this item? Councillor Hayward? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously, thank you. 10.3.3 requires an absolute majority. I invite someone to move that. Councillor McGrell, seconder. Councillor Hayward. Councillor McGrell. Councillor Hayward. Speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously, thank you. We move to 10.4.3. Mr Stuber, welcome. You have 5 minutes. There's a clock in front of me here which will guide you.
There was some handouts provided earlier on, which I'd hope to get to all the councillors, just so you can follow the bouncing ball and I don't have to go through everything. But thank you very much for allowing us to speak. I'm just speaking here on behalf of a group of Bunbury business people that are very, very keen to provide some assistance to the council and the City of Bunbury in general with regards to setting up a motor museum. I think the key issues is that what we're asking from council income is, as we see, is $1 million over 10 years of net rent. We've say 10 years because we've put it to the council that we really think this project needs 10 years for it to be in fruition, and that has been broken up into a 5+5, but we've done the figures on 10 years. The REM plan, which I understand is recognised by most councils, actually gives a total economic benefit during that 10-year period of over 40 million. So we're asking for council income of 10, and we are projecting an economic benefit back to the city of over 40. And just based on 4 events per annum, once again, the proposed 10 years of rents returned to the city in 1 year. So we think that there's a reasonable set of numbers that everyone should be comfortable with. We'd just like to point, the building's been vacant now for a couple of years. You're all familiar, it's the south building there. We are after a 5+5 year term, and that's been discussed, and there's a redevelopment clause that we were reluctant initially to be, to work with, but we've since come to conclusion or come to agreement with the city about the redevelopment clause. I'll come back to, but just like to also share with you, this is not just a group of enthusiastic volunteers, sort of setting up a bridge club, not to put anything on the bridge clubs, but it is actually a group of business people that are putting up their own valuable resource, which is time, of course, and also $100,000 in funds. So it's 5 business people that are sort of combining their expertise, I suppose, and resources, really, for the benefit of none of them, just for the City of Bunbury. I've been a director of the Motor Museum of WA. That's how I ended up getting this gig up here for a number of years. And I just want to assure you that there's the arrangement up at the City of Swan is a 10-year plus 10-year term. So what we're asking of 5 and 5 is certainly not out of the norm. What we're proposing is the Bunbury Geograph Motor Museum would be a not-for-profit company. It'll be registered for a deductible gifts recipient, which would hold the directors and its trustee for the Bunbury Geograph Museum Trust. And that structure allows the museum management to actually apply for grants. So the intention is there, we wouldn't be having our hand out to the City of Bunbury during the process. They'll get onto the grants just as soon as anything's possible. But I'd also like to point out that the entity will never make a profit. I think there's some concerns that perhaps what do we do in the second year, should we have an increase or a ramping rent, but it'll never make a profit. I've been involved in the Motor Museum in Perth there for some time, and we've just, after 20 years, rounded up enough money to actually air condition the place. So I don't know of any museums around that actually make money. What we would be liking to do is virtually with any funds that generally just come through the door is we have to start off with a fairly static display of the museum, and of course, you know, kids and everyone today, they all want something to touch and light and everything. We've just got to work through investing in interactive technology and getting it better and better. We've got to use a full-time manager there, and that will take pretty much all the funds and things that can be derived. And I'd just like to say that something that's probably has discussed earlier, but the Bunbury Council, we would just like to sort of consider this as an opportunity extension to the mental health of the city. There's a good volunteer base that form a part of these museums, and you know, once again, the library, just for example, is something the ladies at the Motor Museum of WA take great pride in. The other issue I think which we're going to have to rip into is the relocation clause is something that I understand a lot of the councillors are concerned about. I'm hoping that it's been explained correctly. I hope that what you've got here explains it correctly. The key wording that has come about through negotiations has been the city to use its best endeavours. Just the yellow part there is, I say to you, the council is not committing a blank cheque to a future council. The council is committing $0 at the end of that initial 5-year term at the redevelopment clause. Or they're providing a future council the opportunity to continue the investment, because using their best endeavours, I can just...
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Stuber, but
Yep.
Can you just wind up now?
Wind up, is that if there is a property that appears to be suitable, but the funding's not available for it, then the council uses its best endeavours and they can't provide it. It's as simple as that. So the council's certainly not committing themselves to any future funding for a future council.
Thank you very much. Can I also move the executive recommendation? I'll get this off the table first. Councillor Hayward.
Actually, I have a question, but I would like to, I'm happy to move the executive
You're happy to
recommendation.
move.
I do have a question as well.
Yeah, is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Smith. Okay, let's deal with some questions. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I really appreciate this, but I was just wondering what the bottom, the last one, would be prudent for the council to act now to get the jump on Bustleton. Could the CEO explain what does that mean? Thank you.
Can you explain that, Mr. CEO?
Sorry, not sure where that's referred.
Yeah, that's in the notes. I don't think it's relevant at the moment. Councillor McCleary. Councillor Hayward, you had a question and then I'll invite you to speak.
I did, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a question through the CEO. Last, at the briefing session, I understand Councillor Brown raised a question about what law the lease would be drawn up under and what potential liability that would put on us as a council in relation to the legal understanding of what the redevelopment clause would require us to do. I'm wondering if the CEO's had some advice back about that. Then I have a follow-up question after hearing that, if I
Yeah,
can.
CEO.
Through Mr Mayor, so my understanding, and as I guess confirmed, if you like, by Councillor Brown, was that buildings over 1,000 square metres do not necessarily have to comply with the Commercial Tenancies Act. This building is over 1,000 square metres. The city would intend to have the lease prepared under our sporting clubs and community groups lease framework, not under the Commercial Tenancies Act.
Further question?
Thank you. Just a follow-up question. If that's the case and there isn't any risk, I'm just wondering what the difficulty is then in terms of being able to facilitate the question. What's the risk for us if, in here, the notes that they're presenting to us there, best endeavours means that if we've done our best endeavours, but if the building's too expensive to refit, that's our choice. What's the risk in including it, I wonder?
That's a reasonable question.
Through Mr Mayor, so at officer level, we have considered that the way that the clause that the management group preferred was worded did leave the city with some risk, and that it could be construed that, irrespective of using your best endeavours, if a building was found, then the city or the council into the future would have been obligated to undertake those repairs. I have to say we haven't taken legal advice on that clause or on that wording at this point in time. I'd be prepared to do that in terms of framing up the lease.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, just one more, just in response, if I may.
It's a question, Councillor Hayward, not an opinion.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm again just wondering, given that what we have in front of us here seems to be consent from the other party for us to be able to exercise that right, is there an opportunity for that to be negotiated through?
Thank you, CEO.
I think based on the conversations, yes, there is. I think to this point we haven't quite agreed on the wording that would be contained within the MOU. So the officer's recommendation is the MOUs as is presented in the agenda tonight. The management group have remained very firm that their preference was to have the wording that they have provided. We've been trying to find some middle ground to get us to the point of having those conversations within the negotiations for the lease. The management group to this point have, to the best of their ability, tried to reduce any inconsistency between what would be in the MOU, which would then be directly translated into the lease. So they've held that position rather than, I guess, what we've said, let's have those conversations.
Mr Stuber, sorry. We need a 2 metre separation, and just leave those documents there. We'll hand them out later. Sorry, CEO, go ahead.
The officers, I believe, have considered that we could have some of those further negotiations between the entering into the MOU and the preparation of the lease.
Okay, let's go.
Can I just ask a further question, sir?
Look,
Thank you.
councillors, they have to be questions,
Well, this is a question, sir.
right?
It's just that my understanding of this is the wording best endeavours. Is the best endeavours, the way that it's worded, not worded as shall? So the council, the question is, the council wording that we've put in this document is not shall, but use best endeavours. So have we just used the simple explanation of the Interpretations Act? Because the wording between shall and best endeavours is clearly put.
CEO.
So I'm referring to the draft MOU, which is the attachment to the agenda item tonight, and the current wording of the redevelopment clause. This particular clause, the city commits to use its best endeavours, should the redevelopment clause be enacted, to assist the management group in finding suitable and comparable alternative premises. I think both the management group and the city agree with that part of the clause. It's the part of of the clause where we haven't been able to find agreement, where the management group, and I haven't got the exact wording in front of me, I need to go back to a different document, where it, essentially the intent would be for the city to also provide the next facility or the next building as fit for purpose.
Was there a question over to my right? Councillor Giles?
Yes, Mr Mayor, just to clarify in my own mind, if we were to pass this item tonight, would that mean that if there was something in the negotiations that you weren't happy with or didn't think you didn't think fitted with this, you have the right to come back to us and say that, or is that what I'm interpreting here? We're not actually saying we are going into an agreement, we're going into a discussion about the agreement?
CEO?
Correct. If there's anything that was outside of the MOU wording, but I guess at the CEO level or officer level, we felt it was appropriate to continue the negotiations, we'd bring it back to council.
Let's have some debate. Councillor Hayward.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. I think this is something that we should be supporting. It's a very strange time, as we all know, in the world right now, and I think that the cracking on with something like this sends a very clear message to our community that we are building for the future, that we are looking for a bright and prosperous future in Bunbury despite the challenges that we all have. So I think that right now that's a really important message. The other thing is that this building has been underutilised over the past couple of years, and in the current market, let's face it, we're not renting it out anytime soon for a commercial rent. And I think that the work that has been done in terms of the RDA stuff, or in terms of the economic development, although that doesn't ring in our register, it doesn't pop into the City of Bunbury's income statements, it does benefit our community, and our community is in desperate need of some good news in this space. And I would really encourage all of us to get behind and support this. I think it is worthwhile. I think that one of the things Bunbury's always done really well is it's always had a mix of things to do. You know, we have every possible club here, from croquet to the bridge club to whatever. We have always done really well in terms of being able to meet the needs of groups, and I think that motoring enthusiasts as well do and will have some money in the future, and if they're going to come and spend it in Bunbury, then I think that's going to be a great outcome and something that we should support. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support Councillor Hayward's comments. I'd just like to make a few of my own. I don't need to tell you all that I rather like museums and art galleries. I think I've probably demonstrated
Horses
that.
and cats.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Yeah. Can't put them in a museum, though. Although there is one in Mona, a stuffed kitten,
right,
which I found very disturbing. However, seriously though, what I like about this project is the fact that it's not in competition with the surrounding traders. Hopefully it will bring people in, they'll look at the cars, they'll wonder at the cars, then they'll wander off downtown and spend some money. And I agree with Councillor Hayward, we really do need to cheer people up. We are going to come to the end of this problem at the moment, and it's going to be good to have something like that. And as I say, it's not in competition with other traders. Seriously speaking about the stuffed kitten though, and I'm talking about MoMA in Hobart, I don't know if any of you have been there,
Yep.
That one art gallery museum turned the Tasmanian economy around. 400,000 extra people went to Hobart just to see that facility. I'm not saying, sorry Mr Stibber, the cars are in that league, but hopefully in a smaller way we'll be attracting people to Bunbury to do that. So I urge councillors to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against this? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'll have to shout.
Oh, Councillor Hayward can lend you his microphone.
Thank you for that. I'm not against the recommendation. My concern is timing. Councillors, the MOU that is in front of you could, I believe, be described as a new city project in partnership with the management group of the proposed art museum. The regional impact statement sets out a good argument for the city to partner up. Stats for the tourism are promising, but that was written pre-COVID-19 pandemic. Our budget was solid, projects on the back burner for many years were ready to take off. Business was still a concern, however, we were working towards solutions. One being increasing tourism. In fact, tourism was increasing. Pre-pandemic, I would have considered and described this proposal as exciting and a definite tourist draw card to Bunbury, one that the city could afford for car enthusiasts. However, we are in the grips of a virus pandemic. The health crisis has not begun in the southwest yet. It is still rolling towards us for who knows how long. 3 months, 6 months, longer? And this is just the health side of the pandemic. Okay, let's say the health side takes 6 months. Imagine everyone is now recovered. The vaccine has been distributed to all those who did not suffer from the virus. We will still have a long way to go. We will be let out of our isolation gradually so the recovery can be monitored for outbreaks. Businesses, social outings will not burst open all at once. It won't be back to business pre-COVID-19 in 6 months' time. Emotionally, residents will be at an all low and worse, some recovering quicker than others. Now we have the physical fallout, the very real financial crisis, currency crisis, inflation. This is what our city will be dealing with. Everyone has read the COVID-19 A City of Bunbury response that we will be voting on tonight. That is only the tip of the iceberg of what is in front of us as councillors when we come to 2020-21 budget and beyond. You may think I'm exaggerating, but I speak with some knowledge. I went through Cyclone Tracy in 1974 and stayed for the rebuilding, actually for 27 years. This was a difficult time for Darwin residents and businesses. People were devastated, 41,000 without homes, their businesses destroyed. It took years for the community to recover emotionally and financially. Some never did. And that was a natural disaster affecting the NT only. Today, we have a worldwide disaster. It's almost impossible to get one's head around what the future consequences are going to be. A very brave new world will emerge. In this uncertain financial climate, we have been asked on behalf of our ratepayers to commit over $317,767 exclusive of GST dollars for the first year of this project, be it in kind or currency. South Building contribute to its upgrade, outfit to the value of $150,000, peppercorn rent for 5 years, free rent for the next 5 years, lease agreement to be finalised within a period of 3 months. I ask you, councillors, elected representatives of our community tonight, do we pledge over $300,000 to a new tourist project, or do we postpone this MOU and use this money wisely to ease our broader community's pain, giving them hope and confidence to resurface, regroup, start afresh in business? Once that has been accomplished, then we will be in position to look at partnerships such as this. I cannot in all conscience go ahead with this MOU. We have lives and businesses to save. Please vote down this recommendation tonight. Ask the management group to bring this MOU back to the table when we can better predict the financial and health implications of this pandemic. They will have my support then.
Thank you, Councillor McCleary. Speaker 4, Councillor Stick.
Thank you, sir. I would like councillors to support this motion for several reasons. It is true that we are in a pandemic, but it is also true that economically our community is suffering. I see this as a really good project to be battle ready when we come out of the storm. And we need to be resilient for our community, and we need to get ready for the new norm. If you think that the coronavirus is a pandemic now, I think that realistically, globally, we all have to revisit our assets, our businesses, and how we deal with our day-to-day conduct. I think this has taught us all a valuable lesson. But I see this as jobs and jobs creation. I see the fit-out people, I see the cabinet makers, I see the sign writers, I see the web design people, I see the technical engineering guys, because as the gentleman said, we've got hands-on gadgets for little kids and big kids, because let's face it, there's a few motorists out there that love to go and have a good look at motorists. And myself, I think that I know that the multi-billion-dollar business around the globe in cars and museums of cars and resale of vehicles is astronomical. So please don't discard this as a pre-Corona-19 opportunity. I have in my hand here a document from global experts, and this is basically EY after the global coronavirus 19. And this is some of the global experts out of China, and they're telling you to maximise the use of government support policies, use policies that encourage public benefit donations. This motor museum absolutely fits the both of those. And we have to do the heavy lifting now. Yes, it's untimely in the sense that not everyone can go in there. It doesn't mean that the jobs can't be done now to get ready for 6 months' time. So I urge you to vote for this.
Further speaker against, Councillor Steele.
Mine's maybe not against, but I want clarification, please. Point 3 is 150,000 in total, and point 4, is that an extra 150,000?
CEO.
Through Mr Mayor, no. So the total allocation of up to $150,000. So point 3 is the financial component, and I'm sorry I didn't include in the agenda, but that will require an absolute majority to allocate the $76,215 from the budget surplus. Point 3 is essentially saying providing those funds up to the $150,000 either for the city to undertake the works or for the management group to undertake the works, because we feel they may well attract better value for that money than the city can in bringing tradespeople to the task. So it is a maximum of $150,000 in total.
I'm a bit, right, because I read that as separate as 150 each. I think that maybe needs to be worded a bit better then, so they don't come, or anybody can come back and say, well, actually you've said 150 here, but you've also said in point 4 an extra. Like, it seems to me a bit separate, and I'm not quite sure how we can either flip that around as where the 3 is the 150, where the 3 or 4 is 3, and then the breakup is 3. Just so I just want that actually stipulated a bit.
Is there a speaker against? Councillor Yip.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Cleary. I think the next 6 months the community will expect some austerity from us, and I'd like to see it come back to us in 6 months' time. I'm also disappointed that we weren't presented with the other 2 proponents so that we could compare what would be a better outcome for the community, because without knowing that, I would hate to commit to this and then find out, well, we know what the other 2 are and whether they could have provided a better deal or better deal for the community.
I'm going to speak for this executive recommendation, and the points have been covered already. And I hear Councillor McCleary and I hear Councillor Yip, and I know that some others might have those concerns as well, but we do need to be positive in our community right now, as positive as we can be and responsibly. So, as the presenters have pointed out to us, there's a significant opportunity for unique visitors to Bunbury. These are visitors who wouldn't come here for sporting events possibly or other events that we have here. This is the opportunity for unique visitors, that is, people who are very keen on motor museums. And as has been pointed out in presentations on other occasions, these museums have proven to be extraordinarily popular in other locations around Australia. I think the Launceston Museum was one cited to us where they have incredible number of visitations. If we get anywhere near the returns that the REM plan is suggesting we get from the unique visitor injection of cash into our community, that is a significant amount of money. And we are happy to fund events. We've been very successful with our events funding. We've attracted unique visitors to Bunbury. People who've never been here before because of the events, their tennis or their hockey, whatever, their BMX, their road racing. We've had people who have visited Bunbury for the first time and have been absolutely impressed with our city. And I've had those comments made to me at each of those events that I attend and speak to. We need to think positively. We start the first 1 April, which is tomorrow, 3 months. It'll take then another 3 months after that, possibly 4, to get the building ready. So realistically, you're looking at the end of the year before it actually could be open. So time-wise, I'm an optimist. I think we'll be over COVID-19 well and truly by then. Oh goodness, I hope we are. But let's not use that as a reason for us not to go forward. We do need to be proactive and positive and get on with things, and we will do that. So I'm supporting this, and not because I just saw a photo of Mr. Riccardi's Formula One race car. We do need to get on with this. Further speaker against? Councillor Hayward.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, just to reiterate, we have a building that's empty. It's been empty for a couple of years. It is going to remain empty. So by moving forward with this, although there's an argument on the financial cost because there's some setup cost, the reality is the benefit is much greater for us. And let's imagine in December that they open the doors, that we're over COVID-19. People are certainly sick of being in their houses and very happy to get out. They're going to land here, some of those people, they're going to look at this museum, they're going to walk out and they're going to walk to the pub, or they're going to walk to the local business that's struggling right now, that needs a solution and some hope and some light at the end of the tunnel, and this provides it. If that pulls 20,000 visitors, there are 20,000 visitors that are all going to stop and grab something to eat, and that is going to make a significant difference to the life of our CBD. Not to mention it's going to turn a vacant building into a lively and attractive looking building for our city as well. So I think it is worth the investment. I encourage you all to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I point out, councillors, clause 3 requires an absolute majority, so I'm going to take these one by one. And I'm sorry, Mr. Galinsky. Number 1, please indicate support. Those against? 1. Councillor McCleary voted against. The rest were for. You voted for, so that's unanimous, thank you. Number 2, those in favour please indicate. Those against? That's carried. Councillor Steele, Yip and McCleary were against, the rest were for. Number 3, please indicate your support. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay, those against? Councillor Yip. Councillor McCleary, did you vote then? 10, yeah, I'd like your attention. I'd like your attention, please. You normally give me undivided. That's carried by an absolute majority. Number 4, all in favour? Those against? Councillors McCleary and Steele were against. That's carried. Number 5, all those in favour, please indicate. Those against? Councillor McCleary, Yip and Steele are against. That's carried. Number 6, those in favour please indicate. Those against. That's carried. Councillors McCleary, Yip and Steele were against. Thank you. We move to item 14. Can I have someone move that we proceed on this matter as being urgent? Councillor McCleary. Councillor Plum, all in favour? Councillor Steele? That's carried unanimously, thank you. So, councillors, there may be, before I invite a mover, are there any questions or clarifications that you want? As this is a late item, we haven't had that opportunity of going through this previously. Councillor Smith. I'm happy for us to have questions now, Councillor Smith, but if you want to suspend standing orders during debate, that's a different matter. Okay. I'm open for questions, councillors. Councillor Giles.
Mr Mayor, I'm just looking at an email which landed in my inbox at 5:29pm, just as we were starting the meeting from Walga. I'm not sure that anybody on council has had a chance to look at that, but they have templates now for all of this sort of stuff. They put them out.
Excuse me, Councillor Smith actually moved a procedural motion to the standing orders be suspended, so it actually has to be voted on.
Do you wish to move that?
The reason I suggested that, Mr Mayor, I think there are a few questions here, and rather than debate it straight off, that there may be some questions. I know I've got some that I'd like to ask.
I'd like to second.
So what we're going to do is suspend standing orders dealing with the debating part of the standing orders. Is that correct, Councillor Smith?
Yes, Mr.
Is that your understanding, Councillor Steele?
Stand up and down at the time.
I'll put it. All in favour? Those against? That's carried. Councillor McGuell and myself voted against. And so what we're going to do now is have questions, and then I'm going to ask for a mover, and we'll suspend standing orders throughout all of that. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I finish my question, please? Do I have to stand or not? No, okay, thank you. Yes, so the email from Walga at 5:29 p.m. today states that they have some policy templates for all sorts of things, some of which are included in this particular motion and some which aren't. So has the CEO or anybody else read that information?
It arrived at 5:29 tonight, and you're asking if we've read it.
Well, I wanted to know whether we'd had if the council had previous notice of this, because it just seems to me that there's a lot of things happening and we're being very, very quick to put something out without actually looking at, it might look good to put something out quick, but I think there's a lot of other stuff that we could look at before we pass a motion of this nature.
Councillor Giles, as I said at the beginning of this meeting, the city staff have done an enormous amount of work, and Walga's probably trying to establish itself in this space, and it's doing a good job of that, and others are as well. The City of Bunbury is its own entity, and we're forging ahead.
That was just an example of something. The things change every day at the moment, and I think we don't need to be too quick to get into something like this as a motion. We can still do things without actually having it a formal motion, because next week we might have wished that we'd had something else in that motion.
CEO?
Through Mr. Mayor, I was going to say, I haven't seen the Walga information, but if there are templates there that suit what we're proposing, we'd certainly try to use those, because there has been, I guess, a number of conversations about trying to have some consistency across organisations, notwithstanding that each local government will make its own decision on what its capacity is to contribute to a recovery campaign.
Councillor McGuell?
Can I just ask the CEO the question that exact point? Basically, obviously, part of this motion is that we're asking the CEO to prepare a relief and recovery action plan. So this will come back to us, taking into effect all the stuff that Walga prepared and all the changes that are likely to happen in the next week or so. But we will come back with obviously those further things.
CEO?
Through Mr. Mayor, the intention would be that we'll enact some things today, like tonight, tomorrow morning, and there certainly are some elements that in a way have already been enacted, including cancelling payment for parking as an example. We made that decision based on, I guess, public health grounds. We then have had to close some of our facilities. Some of those facilities even had commercial leases in them where we've actually not allowed those people to enjoy quiet enjoyment of their lease. So we've actually had to, we have inadvertently prevented those people from being able to trade. So we need to be able to make decisions based on their lease arrangements and a whole range of other matters as quickly as we can in fairness to those businesses. We have 3 commercial leases running food premises, and certainly their business model has been interrupted dramatically. I think we need to be in a position, or I need to be in a position to make decisions around some form of curtailment over a period of time for the payments that they are ordinarily due to pay the city.
Councillor Steck?
Thank you, sir. I kind of am feeling similar to Councillor Giles, because I asked the question, what will our model look like, considering the federal government has already got one of its main pointers, cost sharing or deferral of losses between landlords and tenants with Commonwealth, state and territory governments, local government and financial institutions to consider mechanisms to provide assistance. And that was yesterday, with a whole range of stuff. Mm-hmm. Today, from the State Premier, you have an extra $305 for electricity, that makes it up to $610 in emergency assistance payments. Then you've got for the COVID-19 eligibility, you've got another $305 for water. There's no disconnections of water and electricity if they can't pay. There's no interest if they can't pay. If they've already been in debt and have got an interest, then they're waiving that. They're not putting any more interest on it. They're saying they will extend that out through to December to their payments. Households that are directly, indirectly by this COVID-19 virus, they can have, for small business, they can transfer duties, landholder duties, vehicle licence duty, land tax. And Keystart customers also can save up to $7,000 over the next 6 months to December. You've got, again, $2,500 to electricity and to Synergy and Horizon to all small businesses. You've got, it goes on and on. It goes again.
I don't think you need to, Councillor Steck.
Well, I do, because in the fact that if we're intending on going to discuss this and then come back, we are acting far too slowly for economic stimulus to our community. We have to look at rate rebates probably to December for landholders. We have to probably look at that for every single homeowner. We have to look at that for every even levy that we put on, even for collection of rubbish. We have to do some heavy lifting and take ownership, no different than the state and federal governments. And if we wait and act 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, we will be too late trying to stimulate our economy. We need to be battle ready.
That's exactly what this is about.
Well, I disagree. I think we should just have an economic committee. And given the fact that David Templeton has already said you can still have your committees on electricity, on digitalisation and also reduced quorum, we've got ample opportunity to assist to make decisions every day. By response to this, we could be meeting tomorrow to deal with this.
Councillor Cleary.
My understanding, this is for our community, okay? Now, there's a lot of items going out there which are to do with state and federal government. We don't need that, I don't think.
Yeah, we do. We're still...
Oh, we do we? It's to do with state and government, but people really want to know what's happening in their own backyard. And so I see that this is excellent. I see it more liquid, so there's a lot of things that will go in it and come out of it, and vice versa. So I don't think we can nail it down. It is a virus. It is that is affecting us, so things are going to change as we go on. So I fully support this. I'm arguing. I don't mean to.
Yeah,
What I just wanted to know is there any position here for a couple of councillors to be on as well, to represent our community, whom we may throw stuff at the CEO, which is kind of just basic stuff that would have been included. I don't know, that just as a representative, have a representative on that particular, the relief and recovery plan, if you're putting a group of people together for that, that is only my suggestion, if you like, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Smith? Yeah, are you asking a question? Good.
If we allow the CEO to write off debts and all of that, is there going to be an upper limit? And how many are them? I mean, we've got no idea what these are. Are we going to say, oh, you can waive $10,000 or you can waive $200 or what? I don't think that's clear. That's one question I have. And what's happening with staff who have been working in the facilities that have been closed? Are they being brought back in here to assist with work, or what's happening? Are they helping the CEO or the other
CEO can answer that.
Yeah.
The first question is this does not allow the write-off of debt.
Sorry?
So this clause in the amendment to a delegation does not allow the write-off of debt. So any debt that is owed to the city remains owed to the city. We are suspending or recommending the suspension of debt recovery and recommending the cessation of penalty interest rates on any debt that would be accruing.
Write-off debts, clause 4 that's how I understood it.
So number 4 is request the CEO to prepare the next budget on the basis of a 0% increase, and giving consideration to those factors which are, I guess, the economic environment that we're currently living within. So they are for future council decisions. I guess it's essentially there, the key factor is suggesting that council goes public with requesting a budget be formed on the basis of a 0 rate increase.
So Seven is what we're trying to get to.
So
7.C.
number 7 is amend the conditions to read as follows. Condition A, this delegation does not apply to debts which are prescribed as debts that are taken to be a rate or a service charge. A list of waivers, concessions and debts written off under this authority will be presented to Council on a quarterly basis. So even though it says the number A overrides that, so it can't be debts, but it will be waivers or concessions, and the CEO is to consult with and seek the approval of the Mayor and or his delegate prior to granting a waiver or concession.
Just point of clarification there, CEO. So A refers clearly to rate revenue, but there may be other revenue that is not does not fall under A that potentially could be writing, like rent, for instance.
CEO, go ahead.
So currently, under the current delegation, prior to any amendments, I have the authority to write off, I guess, debts outside of rate or service debts up to $1,000. So that's the current delegation that I have.
So like a dog fine, you assist with that?
Sorry?
So like a dog fine, you assist with that, write those off as well? Well, it's got to be across the board.
It could be any debt other than a rate or a service charge.
So it could be a dog fine.
Could be.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, I apologise, Mr Mayor, but I think the question initially was asked as to how much would that be? So what's the capacity then? We don't know what the rent is for a commercial tenancy. Is there enough limit to how much you'll be prepared to write off under this new, should this go through?
At this stage, there's 6, I think, properties that I would consider. They are the 3 food premises that I've mentioned. There is the commercial lease, 2 commercial leases within the sports centre, and there is a commercial lease of part of Guppy Park, leased by one of the adjoining food premises. So those 6 would be the ones that I'd be looking to write off immediately, and they have a combined total of around $12,500 per month.
Further questions?
I'm still asking about the staff, Mr Mayor. Yes. Sorry. What's happening to staff who...
Oh, staff, yep, staff, CEO.
Okay. So in relation to staff, with the closure of a number of our facilities, a number of staff we have sought to redeploy staff into other areas. Bearing in mind that we have a lot of casuals, the city has provided quite a generous COVID leave entitlement to all of our employees, including our casuals. The casuals have been stood down, I think have predominantly finished their tasks that they had after the facilities were closed. Some of those are looking and doing other work within the city at the moment. Some are progressing to stand down. Some have been stood down. They may be using COVID leave initially. And I suspect, unfortunately for some of those staff, they will need to then register with Centrelink. Other permanent staff, we are looking to redeploy to make sure they are continuing to provide a service to our community wherever we can.
Okay, and should this go through, Mr Mayor, will the CEO be reporting back to council? How often?
Yeah, it's in the report there.
Okay, and just a question on the city's appointed COVID-19 pandemic emergency coordination team. I agree with Councillor McCleary. I really think some councillors should be on that. And who's on it currently? I think we were told this, but I can't remember. Yeah. Are there any minutes taken, and are those minutes circulated to council? Of course, it could be confidential, on a confidential basis.
CEO.
So I think the first question was who sits on the emergency coordination team. There are, Mr Barber is chairing it at the moment, so my easy handball is to hand past him. I think there are a number of managers and other staff with, I guess, formal appointments under that committee. Mr Barber, are you happy to just provide a bit of detail, please?
Yeah, so the city has emergency response arrangements that apply to any emergency, so natural disasters, fire, flood, and this obviously sits within that. The committee has, from memory, but again, we can circulate it, I think it's 7 voting members on it. So there is a logistics officer, which is our manager of procurement. The operations officer, which is the director of corporate performance. I'm chairing it, and we have I guess, expert advice, which is our principal environmental health officer, or our manager of health, and our emergency coordinator is also on that committee. But we can certainly circulate the matrix or the membership of the committee and how it functions to council.
On that, I understand Councillor Giles is the council representative on the Emergency Management Committee, so has any consideration been given to at least Councillor Giles being on that committee? Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So there's the Local Emergency Management Committee, which Councillor Giles sits on, which has also been activated, I believe, and there's some information has gone out to that committee. The Emergency Response Committee has, to this point in time, been a staff committee to deal with the operational issues relating to the response.
No, it's okay. We'll leave it open. Any further questions, Councillor Steele?
I'm just wondering then, there's obviously a staff one. Why us councillors have not been brought together yet for a special COVID meeting? Because there's obviously been emails back and forth and decisions made without us being included. So I'm just wondering why we haven't had a special councillor meeting to maybe get a committee together that actually should be sitting with them, because we actually represent our ratepayers and we know nothing really. And we have a responsibility, so I would like to add that question, why we haven't had a special meeting instead of getting presented with this prior to tonight.
Yeah, I'll respond to that, Mr CEO. Councillor Steele, there has been numerous correspondence, emails sent out to all elected members. There has been a lot of discussion at various, I think last Tuesday's briefing, there was quite a bit of discussion around this as well. So there has been a lot of information shared. CEO?
No, it's been shared, but when have we been able to input in a special, like a special meeting that we can input in, not have stuff shared to us, please?
Well, tonight's your opportunity. CEO, did you want to add to it? Communication with elected members on what the city's been doing in this crisis?
Look, I think, and I do take Councillor Steele's point on board. This has moved very, very quickly, and I guess we've tried to send out what we believe is relevant information. I think when I put this agenda item together, I think after I'd actually circulated it, there were some discussions even from staff about whether there should be some elected member participation in point 2, which is the preparing that next recovery plan phase. So this would enable, if this is supported tonight as it reads, certainly there is some immediate actions that I would undertake. Preparing another report to come back to council in April, I believe it would be useful to have further elected member involvement and conversations in that, and I'm happy to either have that number 2 amended or to give a commitment to elected members that we would invite elected member participation in the preparation of that plan.
Further questions? Councillor Steck?
Thank you, sir. I'm just wondering, with this, where is the policy guideline and where is the cut-off from that policy? Because there needs to be a measured response and a strategic response and a financial, methodical pathway. But just looking at it from saying, we'll write off this and we'll have a limit to what we can write off and do this, is that not good governance? Is it just policy on the run? Where does it go? And I'm trying to ask, where is that pathway? It just seems like there's a few points up there, but there's no congruent space that we're targeting.
Okay,
so I'm a little bit confused with that.
We have an existing policy which is in the report here in front of you. And the CEO has explained the difference between what he's going to do if this gets up tonight and that existing policy. But CEO, did you want to respond to that?
Through Mr. Mayor, I guess the other point I'd make is we see this as a step process. Step one is to do what we can do right now to give some confidence and assurance to our community about what we're doing. Step two would be the April report about what the medium-term actions are that need to be put in place between now through to June 30. And then the longer-term actions are those actions that we need to consider for the 2020-21 financial year. So I think we've just felt that we needed to step our way through this and not make too many dramatic decisions up front. Not being, I think there are plenty of people in the community who would probably suggest we should be making dramatic decisions right now. So we're just trying to find that balance, and I think if you look at what the state government and the federal government have done, they have followed clearly a step process as they have escalated their actions based on, one, their capacity and based on what they're seeing as the impact on community.
Further questions, Councillor Turner?
I noticed James had a late items he wanted to add. Have they been added
Councillor Councillor Hayward.
Have they been added to?
No, Councillor Hayward probably have some comment on that.
Okay.
Councillor Giles.
Mr. Chair, can I ask, what was the hold-up in getting us electronic access? Because I'm on the ACWES board and the South Regional TAFE board, and that happened very, very quickly. We've got meetings tomorrow and Thursday with those boards. We had an emergency meeting last week with ACWES and another one this week with TAFE electronically. So, and that happened within days. Why could we not do that here? Do we not have enough IT staff? Or what's the problem?
Sorry, Councillor Giles, can you just clarify what you're referring to? I know you're talking about technology.
Yeah, I did not expect to be here tonight.
Okay, so
that we would have the IT in place, which would also help with communication, because that is a very good way of having face-to-face communication if it is required. So I'm really disappointed that we haven't been able to do that in a timely manner when other places that I know of have been able to do that very quickly.
take it on board. As I said at the beginning, the city team will have that in place at the end of this week. Your disappointment's noted. Can we have questions relating to this matter? Councillor Hayward.
Thanks. Question through to the I know that probably 4 elected members now have raised this idea of either a committee or a special meeting to discuss this. I think there's a lot of anxiety from elected members. I think we're all keen to participate in finding solutions and not be passengers on a bus, if you like. And there's no criticism at all levelled against the CEO or the team. They've done a fantastic job. This is the start, quite clearly. But I'm just wondering what those next steps were. So I did send those around because I was a bit anxious that tonight would be the only opportunity. And I know that there are other councillors who've indicated to me that they have some other concerns. So I'm just wondering, Mr. CEO, what's the plan for us to be able to do that? Can we get together? You said potentially you'd be happy for number 2 to be amended. I think that might be a bit messy. We're still live streaming now. We're still in a live council meeting. I think that might be a bit awkward to do. I'm just wondering whether you have a solution for us that you could perhaps have a think about in that space. What could we do?
Okay, so in relation to the recommendation part 2, I've said that it could be amended to either to invite all elected members to participate in that, and again, that can be as easy as saying, here's a time, log in once we've got our online teams happening. Getting 13 elected members together at any one time hasn't proven that easy to date, but I'm happy to do that with whoever can provide input and take the input even outside of that session where people can provide their ideas. Given that the idea that the Relief and Recovery Action Plan will come back to Council with the next suite of suggestions, happy to either make the invitation open to all elected members and give a commitment to make the online meetings work, including all elected members.
So when they got committed, or could you just do that anyway?
I've given you a commitment, I will do it.
Can we, Councillor Giles?
A question, but probably maybe a
Yeah,
little
question
later.
is a good idea.
Yes, sorry. Can we take these one point at a time, please?
Yes, absolutely. Right, I'm going to invite a mover for this. Councillor Miguel, seconded Councillor Hayward.
Sorry, sir, we need to go out, resume standing orders.
I'm happy to keep standing orders suspended for the debate, so I'm not going to be hard-nosed about for and against. Councillor Miguel has moved and Councillor Hayward has seconded. Did you have a... Well, not yet. Councillor Miguel, hold it.
So, standing orders are suspended, does that mean anyone can interrupt me at any stage?
Only me.
Okay, that's good. Councillors, look, I think that discussion was good. It's important to note at the moment we are in terms that we have no idea what is going to happen tomorrow, which I think has been pointed out. We're all aware of that. Councillor Steck was referring to some state policies that have changed. They are changing daily. When they introduced the stimulus package last week, introduced it, this is what they're going to do. A day later, it was changed again. So things are changing very, very rapidly, and we need to make sure we're proactive in that change as well. So the points we've raised, very valid points. I don't believe some of them actually relate to what we're dealing with tonight. What we're dealing with tonight, point one, if we run by them one by one so we make it very clear. Obviously, point one, that's pretty clear. We know that's a no-brainer. Point two, we've touched on. This is probably one of the most important points of the whole item, in my opinion, is getting this recovery action plan in place, which is going to be changing. It's going to be starting to come along, but as we know, it's going to be changing the full time. By the time it comes in April, we're probably going to want to be reviewing again. It's good. It's very relieving to hear that there will be some councillors involved in that, and I don't think we need to amend it. I'm happy with the CEO's word on that. Point three, again, it's a no-brainer. We're obviously going to be chasing state and federal funding wherever we can. I'm sure that's already happening. We can continue to do that. It is pretty important to note that, yeah, at this stage, obviously there's been a lot of help for businesses, people affected, but as we were talking earlier, no local government support's been sort of handed out at this stage from either government. Point four is an interesting one. Obviously, I'm going to be supporting that 100%. A 0% increase, I think, is the minimum. Again, it's not committing to anything. It's saying that we're requesting our CEO to prepare the budget at 0%. We might get in a month's time or in a week's time and say, you know what, 0% is not going to be good enough. Who knows? We can't work that out yet, but if we give him some direction to at least prepare something with a 0% rise, at least he can come back and say, here's where the budget is, we're in a deficit or wherever we are, and then, or whatever may happen. There's also going to be these saved, there's going to be this, and next thing we might say we want to reduce the budget or reduce the rates. We can deal with that. That again is just giving some direction to let the CEO get on with doing some work. Number five, I have no problem with. Obviously, interest charges at this stage, I don't think many people in the world will be charging interest on outstanding rates. I have no issues with that. Number six, and is basically tied up with number seven as well, is what we're talking about with the CEO. This is giving our CEO some direction today of what he can do, what he can help out. I know there was some concern about there, it was raised in the discussion about what he may have the opportunity to do, but let's be honest, we got to give some leeway to our CEO to say, well, these are the things which are common sense. We're not going to be charging lease for a cafe out the front that doesn't have anybody walking in the front door. We're not going to be charging them to use their seater out the front. So no problems with that. And the sort of rubber banding there, it has to be ticked off by the Mayor as well. So I have no problems with that at all. And of course the 8 is just basically tying it up when it comes back to us. So looking through those items one by one, I can't see any reason why any of us should be voting against any of those. They're all straightforward. Yes, there are a number of issues there that have been raised that are outside these current issues, but I think very important we get this off the ground because it shows the city is basically on the forefront or on the front foot to our community, saying we're trying to help out in any way we can. There will be some help or help's needed later on, and we can deal with that at that stage. But I think what we're doing with today or right now is very reasonable, and it has my full support, and I think we need to show that support and go from there. So thank you. I urge everybody to support all the items.
Thank you. Councillor Hayward.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Can I just start off by saying that look, I think that our CEO and team here have done a fantastic job, and well done to all of you for pulling this together. Every government at every level has gone through a series of processes. Stage 1, 2, you've got to start. And the thing is that we have cafes that we are charging for rent, for space that they cannot utilise. It is absolutely unfair, and you know as well as I do, telling them to sit tight for 3 months while we sort it through council is just, it's not going to cut it. Our community is demanding that we respond more quickly. This is the first step to being able to solve those problems tomorrow morning. So we need to back this for the sake of our community. I don't think this goes anywhere near far enough, just like the first steps that the state and federal government took. and I think we're going to need to do a lot more than what's on here, but there is a process to go through, and I'm very pleased to hear the CEO make a commitment to allow elected members the opportunity to participate in putting those plans together and getting that information through. I think that's a great step forward for us tonight. As I said, I did raise some concerns. I think we need to go further, but we can't, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we've got to respond to this in an orderly manner, and getting this through tonight is the first step to be able to doing those next steps next time we meet. So I would encourage all of us to support it. It would be great to see this unanimously supported for the sake of our community. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, but I have an alternative motion. Could I ask Mr Galinski?
Sorry, Councillor Steck. Councillor Smith highlighted she wanted to move an amendment first, so I'll invite you to do that.
I'm going to do that, Mr Mayor, because the word ratepayer is now on item 1 where it wasn't on.
Okay, Councillor Steck, you want to move an amendment?
Thank you, sir. Can I ask Mr Greg Galinski to put it on screen, please? And I apologise to councillors for the lateness. I was waiting for the Premier's press conference this afternoon. And because of that press conference, because of the federal government's stance, and because I've already read out to you that there needs to be a synergy between the federal government, actually, sorry sir, I'm speaking to it, I should just read it out first. That council immediately endorse, sorry sir.
Go on.
That council immediately endorse the Finance Committee to act during the COVID-19 global pandemic. The ideal representation for this committee should be Mayor, CEO David Ransom, because he is our money man, Deputy Mayor and 3 other councillors. I've also added there, which is lines missing, that council may want to change the makeup of that committee. Essentially, it's to deal with the economic effect of the COVID-19 pandemic is having on ratepayers, residents and businesses with the City of Bunbury.
Sorry, Councillor, is there a seconder for that?
I do, pro forma.
Pro forma, Councillor Steele. Councillor Steck, carry on.
Do you want me to finish reading the request, sir?
You speak to your amendment.
Okay then. The reason why I wanted to put this...
Sorry to interrupt, Mr Mayor, just a point of order, if I could. I'm just a little unclear. Is this an amendment to be added, or is this an alternative recommendation? I'm not clear.
I think I'm just seeing additional point 9. I presume Councillor Steck's spoken to Mr Galinski to say this will be an additional point 9. Is that your understanding?
Well, sir, I was intending it to be an alternative, but I'm happy for it to be a point 9 because I think it's a serious matter. And if Council's going to go down the path of asking for us to come up with a plan for relief, councillors should be involved. We are elected for the community, and I really believe that the speed of our response to our community is paramount right now. And I would also be seeking an amendment to April 2020 because on point 2 is because there is no time in April. That could be April 30. And I really believe, sir, through you, that is a little too late, considering we need to take advantage of what the state and federal government is giving us. And even in the documentation that I have from some specialists around the world and in this country, it says open transparency, communication fast, make sure you've got all players on the table so you can openly and frankly discuss ways forward. We've already committed this evening to say we've got people that we would automatically write off debts. We've automatically said this evening that we would be looking at not charging rents, because I agree with James, and the federal government agrees with that.
Councillor Hayward.
Sorry, Councillor Hayward, sir, through you, Mr Mayor. I agree with that. We need to really dig in deep to help our community, and that will mean that the CEO is going to have a lot of pressure on him. Staff is going to have a lot of pressure. They're going to need our support, because you've even said yourself, sir, they've done a great job. Councillor Hayward has said they've done a great job. We know they've done a great job. They're under extreme pressure, and the last thing they need is to have us kind of go pull it to pieces when it gets here. They need support from us. The way that they're going to get it, sir, is to work with them before it comes to this chamber. I really, really believe that, because you need a broad perspective. We represent community. We're not operations. We don't deal with things the way they do. And I really just value the staff, but I believe that they will value us as well, contributing just to relieve them of the pressure alone and to give other ideas. Because ideally, not everyone's going to go down the same path in business. They're just not. I mean, Walga's saying spend it quick and fast-track stuff. Other specialists are saying don't. So put your money back to the rates, the zero rates. We're looking at reduced rates for 3 years because of our re-evaluations. It's not just this year's budget that's impacted, it's the next 3. We need to have a strategy that we all need to work with for a long period of time, sir. That's what this is about.
Councillor Steele? I'm going to speak against this. We have, in the motion that's been moved and seconded, we have that covered. A finance committee requires an absolute majority. There's no terms of reference for it. The CEO has already indicated in response to Councillor Hayward's suggestion that he will involve elected members moving us forward. So there's no need for this. Speaker 4?
Just a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
I think you just touched on it, but being a finance committee, does that mean we need terms of reference?
Yes, all of that.
So wouldn't it be a working group?
Sorry, sir. I did draft some.
And just secondly, so this is going, if this amendment is passed, it'll just form 0.9, is that correct?
That's what it's saying, yeah.
Mr Mayor, may I speak against this?
Yes.
Whilst I agree with Councillor Steck that we need to be agile to respond, I think that creating a committee to facilitate or administrate these changes is going to do the exact opposite. I think it's going to slow the process down at this point in time. Maybe in the future a committee might be needed, but at this point in time I think it'll do the opposite.
Speaker 4 or against? Councillor, sorry, Councillor.
Mr Mayor, I would really rather this been something like a working group rather than a finance committee, because I think that's probably more what was intended, but I think the finance committee is not the right group. I think it needs to be a working committee, and I think we've already had the commitment from the CEO that we will have something of that kind. So although I agree with the sentiments, I just think that is not quite, it's not quite the right committee. Thank you.
Speaker 4 or against, before I invite Councillor Steck to close. Councillor
Thanks very much, Mr Chair. I'm actually quite torn, because I actually think that this is kind of what people actually do want. I think that we do want to have something like this. The difficulty for me is that I haven't seen any terms of reference, and I don't want to put the CEO in a situation where he's got more administrative stuff to deal with right now, and so I kind of do wonder if this is part of that Plan B bit. So I guess I won't be supporting it tonight because of that, but I actually think Councillor Steck's on the money.
Any further? Councillor Steck to close?
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor McCleary, go ahead.
I'm torn also, but I think we should have done this some weeks ago. I think now it's too late. We have to move forward. There is a trust. We have been told that the CEO is going to come back with us. It is important that we do know, especially the finance. That is one of my things that I was on about, the timing, because we really don't know what our finances are going to be like, and I'm sure people are going to be asking us that. So if there is an opportunity later on down the track after this emergency initial plan is put into place, that we can have the conversation with having a working group put together, I'd like to encourage that we do that. Thank you.
Councillor Steck to close.
Thank you, sir. Given the comments from councillors, and I really value their contributions, I am, obviously a bit disappointed because it's not going to fly. However, through you, Mr Mayor, I hear loud and clear councillors do want a working group, and they will not necessarily now, but as an action to further investigate. So I'm happy with that. I will continue to support it, however, but I do have a terms of reference that I will circulate to the CEO, and he'll probably work them up a little bit better. So it's a collaborative approach, and I'm happy with that.
Okay.
And also, I would just, if I may, I would also like, actually now's not the time, I'll do it later at point 2. Thank you.
So dealing with amendment, additional point 9, those in favour, please indicate. Are those against? Councillor, yep, that's lost. Councillor Steck voted for, the rest voted against. You voted for it. So Councillor Smith and Steck voted for, the rest, I believe, voted against. Can we go back to the executive recommendation, which has been moved and seconded, both have spoken. Is there a speaker against?
Sir, can I just ask for an amendment to point 2?
Yes, what is it?
Thank you, sir. I would just like to ask that the executive officer expedite this matter, and that if I know this is going to put him under enormous pressure, but I would like that report to be the next round at least. I would not like to see it at the end of the month. As I said, I reiterate, that's going to put a lot of pressure on him, but it's very important we get our skates on and get moving very quickly. And then we can look at what we need to do in rate relief, rent relief, all those things. They can't wait till the end of the month. They've got to be sorted now. We've got the positions from the government. They've
Sorry,
got
Councillor Steck, is there a seconder to that amendment?
Sorry, sir.
Don't they just have to, don't the mover and the seconder just have to agree if they want it in it, if it's just an amendment?
No, this is bigger than that. Is there a seconder to it? Are you seconding it, Councillor Steele?
No, I'm not seconding it, but actually, if it is just an amendment, it is actually just the, that is the actual,
No.
rules.
I'm asking for a seconder to this.
Only if it's a complete and utter, thing, but I don't think you're actually right.
It's okay, you can hold that thought. Is there a seconder to this?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Councillor Steck.
Thank you, sir. I can see clearly already that the appetite's not in the room, but I would reiterate, sir, we really do need to get onto this. It's really imperative. There's a lot of people that are suffering out there, and the assistance that the federal government and states government has provided is imperative that we lift that with assistance from us as well. We need to encapsulate that. We don't need to be too worried about our workers, Mr. CEO, because when they've already been employed and laid off, they'll automatically get $1,100 from the federal government fast track. So we know that they're not going to be broke too much. That is some good news to the story. However, getting back to this particular item, many people in the community are not going to be so lucky. Many people in the community are going to be really in anxiety positions through debt recovery. And every single week is going to count. Every fortnight is going to count. Their mental health and well-being, especially if you've got small children in a household, especially if you've got teenagers in a household, both of them are quite costly. As every one of us has been parents in this room, absolutely know that. So, getting back to the structure of council, we as an organisation and a government organisation at a local level, it is greatly known that we're going to be the ones getting the phone calls. And I've already started getting them. And I'm sure everyone else in this room has. So very, very clearly, economically, I'm getting them from business players, from homeowners, from people that are renting. And unless I've got a really validated answer to them, I can say, well, at the moment, we are getting a report. And you know what? I'm pretty sure most of the community scoffs at that. So I'm just saying, make it very clear for a positive press release, because hit the ground running, be open and transparent, be a good communicator, be a good leader, and say where we're going, and do it up front and do it fast.
Councillor Steele.
No, thank you.
Speaker against? Yes, of course you can.
Of the CEO, was there any chance that he would have this table in 2 weeks' time?
He'll have to have this report ready this Friday. But anyway, Mr. CEO, you can speak for yourself, if this gets through.
Through Mr. Mayor, staff continue to look at the very next action we need to take tomorrow morning and tomorrow evening, tomorrow and the day after that. We can have a report back to council for the next round of meetings. It will still probably require then another report. There'll be probably a number of reports for the balance of the financial year. It may not be the complete action plan, for the next round of meetings, but certainly can further evidence the work and the recommendations that we suggest council takes.
Speaker against?
Yeah, speak against.
Councillor Hayward.
Look, we just can't put the CEO under that sort of pressure. They're already in a pressure cooker situation. I again agree with the sentiment that we need to get moving, and I think we've all got that message. But there are things that, because of tonight's meeting, will change tomorrow morning that the CEO can get on with. And I'd like him tomorrow morning to be ringing those tenants up and down Victoria Street, explaining to them that we've got a solution for them, not calling his people together in an emergency meeting to put some kind of document together to get out by Friday. So again, I agree with the sentiment, but I just don't think it's the right time. Let's just do it in a timely manner and get it right to the best we can. It is an evolving situation.
Speaker 4, Councillor Stick.
Thank you, sir. The difficulty that I have is the separation between a government's head and a private enterprise head. The private enterprise, as I've tried to clearly articulate in this room, they're not going to have the luxury of time to say, well, I'm under pressure. I'm sorry, Mr. CEO, no disrespect, okay? But it's going to be that they're going to go, they're under pressure, they're under the pump, they've got no way out but to find a solution like that. Absolutely like that. And they don't have time to wait till the 30th. You know, I've got people who are that stressed, they're saying they're looking at bankruptcy. Years and years and years of work going to bankruptcy. Their backs to the wall. This is the very realisation of what's happening in our community. And I value the contributions of everyone. I get it. I can't really put the CEO under that much pressure. But I just want to reiterate, I know this set of motions will change the dynamics in this building as of tomorrow morning, I get it, but I really can't reiterate enough that time is not of the essence here. We've got to move it and move it fast and use every single tool we've got and every single opportunity between what government's offering, both levels of government, what we can do to assist that to get our community economically off the ground and with wings flying.
So I'll put the amendment as highlighted in red on item 2. Those in favour, please indicate. Councillors Kozisek, Yip and Steck. Those against? That's lost. The rest were against.
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Giles.
can I propose an amendment, please? To
Sure.
item number 7.
7, yeah.
In the same vein, in a way, under the conditions point B, the CEO is asked to report on a quarterly basis about this. I think that is far too far apart, every 3 months. We need to know much more quickly than that how many waivers have been, it will give us a guide as to what the community is doing.
What have you got in mind?
So I would be suggesting monthly.
Monthly.
Or every two meetings or something like that.
Monthly basis. Now that I'm happy to put to the move and seconder. Are you happy? Are you happy? Yeah.
Mr Mayor, sorry, not to add another amendment, I wanted to add to this point as well. Can we do that at the same time, or do we need to do this and then?
No, that's okay. You're up with it, Mr Gilinski. So that amendment has been agreed to by the mover and seconder. Councillor Plum.
Just that there was some concern in the room tonight about these concessions maybe setting a precedent for non-payment of rates, and that, in my mind, could blow out quite significantly if there is, if that flows on throughout the community. I'd just like to see a point there where Mr CEO, for adding more work to you, can prepare a framework or criteria for those concessions, more clarity, just so that particularly the business sector has a clear framework as to how they may attract a concession, and if that can be brought back to council.
With rates, Councillor Plum, council cannot alter the rates once they've been levied. So the rates will always be there up until June 30th this year. What we do after that is up to us, but I'll invite the CEO to clarify that point.
Yeah, just to be clear, in terms of, rates, there's the way that a local government raises rates and sets its rates is prescribed within the Act. This particular delegation was not going to apply to debts that related to rates. But I think then your question is where concessions or other waivers might be considered, is there a specific framework that they would follow? Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm just concerned for, we would probably look, and I suppose state and federal have looked to provide some stimulus to businesses. If the community is looking to council to do the same sort of thing, we need to have that clearly. I know that's a separate item, I suppose, essentially, but it just needs to be crystal clear as soon as possible. So if people are expecting that from council, I do believe Councillor Hayward's maybe suggesting something along those lines in another point.
CEO, you probably have that in mind for this report back.
Maybe just a question on notice, sorry, rather than a...
No, it's okay. The CEO can respond to that.
And look, and Mr Chandler raised this issue this morning when we're having our own discussion around where do we draw the line. So we would, I had determined today that there are certainly businesses that need to have that immediate relief based on the impacts on their businesses. So 6 businesses that are immediately impacted to a dramatic level. Then there are a number of other licences and lessees of city property. And I think we determined today that, in our view, they would need to be put via application to demonstrate their hardship. So, not trying to put them under too much pressure, but I think there are a number that probably won't be impacted. But I think that essentially the conversation around the April plan, I think we'll need to include some further commentary on that, and happy to get that input from elected members as we work that up.
Thank you. Speaker, for or against? We're still suspended standing orders. If we're all done, I'm coming back to Councillor McGuell. To close. I'm happy to pause.
I'm probably not, I was just thinking that, and I thought about this afternoon, that I don't want to put an amendment in, but I think at some stage we need to have a sunset clause on all of these decisions that we make.
I think it's in there, Councillor Smith.
So that once this problem is over, we're back to...
It's by the end of July. Yeah. Is that right?
So, Mr Mayor, if the condition of reporting monthly, I guess at any time council can rescind the delegation, which will certainly put a stop to it, but we would consider that in some cases the expectation that the COVID virus is going to impact our community for the next 6 months, so we have looked at a 6-month time period. For certain aspects we have considered they should be reviewed in June as council gets closer to setting its 2021 budget. So we're not expecting that anything would be probably put in place for more than 6 months at this stage.
Councillor McGuell.
Okay, that was all very good. And again, I reiterate my point I made earlier about everybody wanting to be involved and wanting to make good positive impact, because that's what we're all here for, and that's what everyone in the whole community, what I've seen so far, people want to see us get through this as a city, as a community, as an individual. So I'm sure we can. As we touched on, this is the start. As Councillor Hayward touched out, this is the start. I've mentioned it as well. It may not go far enough, but it's getting the thing going. A few of the points that were made there, Councillor Plum, it's probably tied up in point 2, I reckon. You know, if we come up with when we're doing this recovery plan or relief plan, it will probably come through in there about what potential we're able to do at that stage. And again, Councillor Steck, I agree with some of your points. It may not be soon enough, but considering that we've now got the commitment from the CEO to be meeting as a council, we might decide in a meeting in a week's time that something is major important, and like anything that ever has come before, we can move a late item that it comes beside. If there's something that really is, can't wait for this plan to be finished, I'm sure that much like this report has come in front of us, it can come as a late item if something needs to be done or further action needs to be done, because as we all said, things are changing rapidly. But this is a good start. It's a good positive start for the city, and it's giving ourselves, it's not locking us into anything, but it's creating a start for our community, and I'm very happy to support it, and I hope everybody else supports it. It sends a good, strong message.
I'll put it all in favour, please indicate.
Just point of order, Mr Mayor. I think someone asked you to take them separately as well.
Yes, they did. Number 1, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Number 2, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Number 3, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Number 4, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Number 5, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Number 6, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Number 7, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Number 8, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Can I have someone move we resume standing orders, please? Councillor McWell, seconder. Councillor McCleary, all those in favour? That's carried. Can I have someone move that we go behind closed doors? Councillor Giles, Councillor Plum, all those in favour? That's carried unanimously. I'll invite the